There is a version of you that is leaking. Not blood, not money, energy, the most valuable thing you have. And most of the time you do not even notice it happening. It happens in the moment you feel excitement about a new goal and immediately pick up your phone to tell someone. It happens when you share your plans before the first step has been taken. It happens in every conversation where you explain yourself to people who were never qualified to understand you in the first place. You have been taught that sharing is connection, that openness is strength, that talking about your goals is part of the process. But the Stoics discovered something that cuts directly against everything modern culture tells you about this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. The most powerful version of you is not the one announcing every move. It is the one building in private, protecting what matters, and letting the results do the only talking that counts. Today, we are going to walk through 10 lessons that will completely change how you think about your words, your energy, and what you choose to share with the world. These are not abstract philosophies. They are practical shifts that will protect your momentum, sharpen your focus, and give you back the power you have been quietly giving away. If this already resonates, subscribe now. Not just to follow a channel, but to commit to your own growth and the quiet discipline that comes with it. The first lesson is that your life is not for public consumption. There is a pressure most people feel and almost nobody talks about. The pressure to perform your life for an audience, to announce your goals, to share your progress, to make sure the people around you know what you are working on. And it feels like connection. It feels like accountability. But underneath it is something far less helpful. It is the need for approval. Every time you share a plan before it is complete, you are not building momentum. You are trading it. You are exchanging the internal drive that would have pushed you through the hard parts for a moment of external recognition that fades within hours. Your mind registers the reaction, the encouragement, the interest, the validation, and files it as progress, but nothing has been built, nothing has been done. You have simply released the pressure that was meant to fuel your action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Not talk about being one. Not announce your intention to become one. Be one. The doing is the point. The doing in silence is where the real transformation lives. Your life is not a performance. It is not content. It is not something that needs to be announced or explained or validated. It is yours. And the moment you start treating it like something the world needs to weigh in on, you hand over the most important thing you own, your own narrative. Build in silence. Let your results be the only announcement. The second lesson is that words spoken too soon lose their power. Think about the last time you felt genuinely excited about something, a new direction, a new commitment, a plan that felt different from the others. And then think about what happened when you told someone about it. There was a rush, a moment of feeling seen and excited together. And then, within days, sometimes within hours, the drive to actually do the thing quietly slipped away. This is not a coincidence. This is neuroscience. When you tell someone about your goal, your brain receives a social signal that registers as partial completion. The acknowledgement feels like a small reward. And the moment you receive that reward, the tension that was driving you toward action begins to release. You no longer need to do the thing to feel the thing. You have already felt a version of it just from the telling. This is why the most disciplined builders in any field understand that the fewer people who know what they are working on, the more fuel remains in the tank. They are not secretive out of paranoia. They are protective out of wisdom. They understand that every time you pour your vision into a conversation, you lose some of the energy that was meant to go into the work itself. Words are powerful, but action is what changes your life. Stop speaking your goals into existence and start living them into existence. The world does not need to hear what you are building. It needs to see what you have built. The third lesson is that attention is a currency, and you have been spending it poorly. You have a finite amount of attention. Every conversation you enter, every person you explain yourself to, every moment you spend seeking to be understood by someone who was never going to truly understand you, all of it costs something, and that cost is real even when it is invisible. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become who you truly are while you are busy performing a version of yourself for an audience that does not serve your growth. You cannot build your real life while you are spending your best mental energy managing other people's perceptions of you. Think about the conversations you have had in the last month that left you feeling drained, where you shared something real and got back something hollow, where you explained your direction and received doubt in return, where you opened up and walked away feeling like something had been taken from you. That feeling is accurate. Something was taken. Your attention, your energy, your focus redirected away from your actual life and into a conversation that gave you nothing back. The Stoics understood that attention directed inward builds. Attention directed outward for the sake of approval drains. Every minute you spend explaining yourself to the wrong people is a minute you are not spending becoming the person you want to be. Be ruthless with where you spend your attention. It is the most valuable currency you have. And unlike money, once it is spent, it does not come back. The fourth lesson is that your boundaries are not walls, they are protection. Most people feel guilty about keeping things private. There is a cultural pressure that says openness is virtue, that hiding things means something is wrong, that real relationships require you to share everything. But there is a difference between intimacy and overexposure. And confusing the two is one of the most common ways people drain their own energy without understanding why. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your choices. You do not owe anyone access to your plans, your struggles, or your direction. Keeping something private is not dishonesty. It is discernment. It is the understanding that not every person in your life has earned the right to influence what you are building. Epictetus taught that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Apply that principle to information. The less you need people to know, the less power their reactions have over you. The less you explain, the less you are shaped by explanations. The less you justify, the more firmly you stand in your own authority. Your boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about keeping something in. Keeping your focus, keeping your momentum, keeping the clarity that disappears the moment you expose an unfinished idea to voices that were never meant to shape it. Say less, protect more, and understand that every boundary you hold is an act of respect for your own journey. The fifth lesson is that your momentum is fragile and it is yours to protect. There is a specific feeling that comes when you are deep in the work and no one knows it. When you are building something quietly, without an audience, without expectation, without anyone waiting for updates, it is a feeling of complete ownership, of pure focus, of moving at your own pace without the weight of other people's timelines or judgments hanging over you. That feeling is momentum, and it is one of the most powerful forces available to you, and it is also one of the most fragile. The moment you let people in too early, before the foundation is solid, before the results are undeniable, before you have developed enough certainty to withstand their doubt, you risk everything you have built. Not because they attack it directly, because their questions, their skepticism, their well-meaning concern plants seeds of uncertainty in a garden that was just beginning to grow. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But that principle only works when you are moving, when you have momentum, when you are committed to the path, regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. The moment you open that process to outside opinion, you invite 100 reasons to pause, to reconsider, to second guess. Build the way a seed grows, underground, in darkness, without an audience, because the roots need to be deep before the world sees the tree. And when it finally breaks the surface, nothing anyone says can pull it back down. Protect your momentum the way you would protect anything precious, because it is. The sixth lesson is that gossip is a machine, and every time you overshare, you feed it. The information you put out into the world does not stay still. It moves, it shifts, it gets interpreted through filters you cannot control, shaped by agendas you cannot see, and returned to you in forms you would not recognize as something you originally said. This is not cynicism. This is how information works between human beings. Every person who receives your story processes it through their own fears, their own insecurities, their own history, and what they pass on is not your truth. It is their version of it. Carl Jung observed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The inverse is also true. Everything you share about yourself becomes material for others to process their own understanding through. And the less you share, the less material you provide for narratives that have nothing to do with who you actually are. As you grow, as you change, as you evolve, the people around you will hold on to the version of you they knew, the you from before the discipline, before the decision, before the shift. And if you have shared too much along the way, that old version of you is everywhere. In conversations, in the stories people tell, in the way they still respond to you as if nothing has changed. Protect your growth by keeping it private until it is undeniable. By the time the world sees it, it will be too solid for anyone's outdated version of you to undermine. The seventh lesson is that people are comfortable with the predictable you and deeply uncomfortable with the growing you. When you decide to change, genuinely, deeply, not as a performance, but as a real transformation, the people closest to you will feel it before they can name it. And the response will not always be support. It will be questions, subtle challenges, attempts to pull you back into the familiar, not out of malice, out of self-protection. Because your transformation is a mirror. And not everyone wants to see what it reflects. The old version of you was predictable, easy to understand, easy to place. The moment you start becoming something different, you disrupt a system that was built around knowing what to expect from you. And systems resist disruption. You do not owe anyone a defense of your evolution. You do not need to explain why you wake up earlier now, why you are spending less time in certain conversations, why your priorities have shifted. The moment you try to justify your growth to someone who is not ready to celebrate it, you are asking them for permission you do not need. Keep walking. Let your consistency be the only argument. The people who are meant to walk with the new version of you will recognize it without explanation. The ones who cannot handle it were never going to come with you anyway. Your growth does not need anyone's understanding. It only needs your commitment. The eighth lesson is that silence is not emptiness, it is where you become. Silence is uncomfortable because we have been trained to associate it with absence, with nothing happening, with being alone in an unpleasant way. So we fill it with conversation, with noise, with the constant need to narrate our experience to someone, anyone, just to prove that it is real. But silence is not the absence of progress. It is the condition that makes real progress possible. Carl Jung wrote that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams, Who looks inside awakes. Every conversation you have to fill the quiet is a conversation pulling you away from the only voice that actually knows where you are going. In silence, you hear your own thoughts without interference. You feel your own direction without the noise of other people's opinions reshaping it. You make contact with what you actually want, separate from what you have been told to want, separate from what would earn the most approval. This is where the strongest version of you is built, not in rooms full of conversation, in the quiet where you face yourself honestly and decide, without anyone watching, who you are going to be. Train yourself to sit with silence instead of running from it. The discomfort you feel in the early moments of quiet is not emptiness. It is the beginning of clarity, and clarity is the most powerful thing you can bring to any area of your life. The 9th lesson is that not everyone deserves your truth. Your inner world is not a public space. It is the most private and most valuable thing you have. And like anything of real value, it requires protection. Not from everyone, but from the many who would not handle it with the care it deserves. This is not about distrust. It is about discernment. The people who deserve access to your real thoughts, your genuine struggles, your actual plans, are the ones who have demonstrated over time that they will hold those things with respect, who will challenge you toward growth rather than pull you toward comfort, who will tell you what you need to hear rather than what feels good to say. Most people in your life do not meet that standard. And that is not a judgment of them. It is simply the reality that most relationships operate at a surface level, and surface-level relationships cannot be trusted with depth-level information. When you share your truth with someone who is not equipped to receive it, you do not get understanding. You get projection. You get advice shaped by their fears rather than your reality. You get your vulnerability turned into a story about you that you never agreed to tell. Protect your truth. Share it only where it will be met with the care it deserves, and let the rest of the world see only what your results reveal. The 10th lesson is that your progress does not need witnesses. It needs consistency. We live in a world that has made visibility synonymous with progress. That has convinced an entire generation that if you did not share it, it did not happen. That your growth is only real if someone else can see it and confirm it. But the most significant transformations in any life happen in private. In the early mornings, no one witnesses. In the decisions made alone, when comfort was the easier option. In the quiet repetition of doing the right thing again and again and again without applause, without recognition, without the validation of an audience. Consistency is the only thing that creates lasting change. Not announcements, not accountability posts, not telling people what you are working on. The work itself, done quietly. Done repeatedly, done without needing anyone else to confirm that it matters. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And one of the greatest imagined sufferings is the fear that progress unseen is progress lost. That if no one knows, it does not count. That if there is no recognition, there is no point. But the work always counts. The discipline always compounds. The character always builds, seen or unseen, witnessed or private. Your consistency is writing a story that will eventually speak so loudly that no explanation will ever be needed. Stop performing. Start building. Your progress does not need a witness. It needs you to show up for it again tomorrow. These 10 lessons are not about isolation. They are not about becoming cold or secretive or cutting yourself off from connection. They are about understanding where your power lives. And it does not live in the opinions of others. It does not live in approval or recognition or the comfort of being understood by people who were never walking your path to begin with. Your power lives in the work you do when no one is watching. In the silence you choose instead of the noise. In the boundaries you hold instead of explaining. In the momentum, you protect instead of expose. The Stoics did not build lives of meaning by performing for audiences. They built them by mastering themselves, by going inward, by doing the hard, quiet, daily work of becoming, without fanfare, without announcement, without needing the world to validate what they already knew was true. That is the life available to you, right now. Built in silence, protected with intention, revealed only through results. Stop explaining, start building, and let what you create say everything words never could. If this shifted something in you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more wisdom that protects your energy and sharpens your focus. Leave this in the comments to anchor it. I build in silence and let my results speak. Until next time, stay stoic, stay focused, and keep building.